Again, just that critical angle. So that's at the 6 o'clock, and then we're tilting it so that we're about 7:05, and you can see these lovely little wispy shavings that we get coming off the wood, and that's absolutely at its best really. Not too heavy a shaving, a nice fine cut. You're getting these lovely wispy shavings coming off. We're not getting dust, and we're getting a nice clean cut. Like, we get a little bit of plucking or tear out where the grain direction changes. We'll smooth that later with another tool, but that's as good as you want to get for the initial rough out. If we just chase that little shoulder along all the way to the edge, the whole time I'm cutting, I'm keeping that bevel in contact with the wood. If I'm off that bevel, it will snatch and it will dig in. So keep that bevel touching the wood, and it will work a bit like a potato peeler. Then it'll only take off a set amount. Now, you can use this tool to rough out the bottom of the bowl, but I find people struggle to get the correct angle, and they're more likely to have a dig in which will tear out our centre. So I'm not saying this is the only way of doing it, I'm just saying that this is an easier way of doing it. So the next tool we're going to use is this cranked tool. Now, I know it looks different because of this major sort of crank in the actual shaft of the tool. The other difference is that this has got the bevel on the inside. Can you see how this one's got the bevel on the outside? That's like our initial roughing out tool. This has got the bevel on the inside of the hook and dead flat on the outside. That makes it a slightly more aggressive tool, and it also makes it slightly harder to get the hang of, but the advantage is that we can get much flatter, smoother cuts by having the bevel on the inside and a flat face on the outside, so more contact with the bowl blank itself. The first cut that we do with this is to remove some of this waste and also this uneven surface, and the safest way of doing that, so you minimise the chances of digging, is to turn it right over. We're going to support the tool by almost using that curve against the tool rest, and we're completely off the bevel now. We're not on the bevel, we're not riding the bevel, we're just going to approach into the bowl surface like this, twisting our back hand like a throttle, and every time our foot goes down and we engage the cut, we're going to do a pretty horrible shearing cut really. It's not going to be nice, it's not going to sound nice, but what it does is it just removes the excess material safely. Now what happens is, if we do have a dig in, is that all it does is it throws the tool out and away, so it's not going to catch and catch into the fibres of the bowl itself and damage our centre. So it won't sound nice and it won't leave a nice finish, but it's just a very safe method of actually turning away that waste material. Now you can work as close as you want to, and if anything you can make a slight concave to the bowl and take any uneven surface, and then we're going to turn the tool over, and this time we're going to ride the bevel. We're going to actually cut in using the flat side of this hook supported on our wood, and we're going to work into the centre of our bowl. Now this is a much more dangerous cut, and if we're not supporting the tool on the bevel, it is likely to catch. See how we've chased that in and we've got a much smoother surface. So we'll have another pass. See how we get those lovely ribbons again now. That means we're leaving a nice surface now. But if we try and remove too much wood, or we start to cut with the nose of the hook, it will just catch. So as we get closer to that centre, sometimes you have to flip it over and you have to have another go with that horrible sort of shearing cut. You don't want to go too close, you want to leave about, I suppose about an inch in diameter, something like that. And if anything, you can make this base slightly concave, so that if the bowl distorts as it dries, it won't wobble. So there you go, we've got our base sorted out. Okay, so we've done the outside roughing out, we've flattened off our base. Now the only part that we haven't touched is this very outer edge now. So again, I find that this tool, which is the third tool of the set, which is almost the same edge profile as on the crank tool, but a dead straight shaft. So it's an internal bevel tool, dead flat on the outside, which helps us plane across this uneven surface and just get the last little bit of the bowl balanced. So it doesn't matter whether you use it with the hook up or the hook down, whichever feels most comfortable for you. And we're going to actually run along that face, get it nice and supported, and we're just going to take off a small bite to start with. Don't try and take too much off because it's going to be uneven to start with. And right out the other side, so we come right off that edge. So there's still a few saw marks. So we'll come back and we'll have another bite. Keep up that RPM again, so make sure you keep that treble in nice and fast. So there you go, we've balanced it up. It's torn it out quite badly because we're working right across that end grain, but like I say, we can smooth that later. But at least now we know that we've got it completely balanced and we've got rid of all our saw marks, so it's truly round now. While we've still got this tool, if you were actually happy with that shape, you could run along that surface with the same hook and it will leave a much smoother surface. See how it takes off much finer shavings. Now the finer the shaving, the smoother the surface. So if you're getting really wispy little shavings like that, you're going to be left with a really nice smooth surface on your bowl. I'm not quite happy with the overall shape, so I'm going to swap between the tools now, both the internal bevel tool and the external bevel tool, to create the shape. Now you'll find that if you want straight lines and plain finishes, the internal bevel tool is the tool to use. If you want more curves, this is the tool to use, the external bevel, purely because it allows you to rock on that curved external bevel. So I'm going to actually cut in here a little bit and create a little foot to the bowl itself. So I'll take a slightly different grasp, you can flip it over. There you go, we create a little foot there, and then we can start to round the shape of the bowl over a little bit. And clear these shavings out of the way. You'll notice the whole time we're creating shavings though, we're not creating dust. If you're just making dust, you've got the angle of the tool wrong. You should be getting this lovely sound coming off the lathe, this lovely slicing sound. Not that kind of sound. That was a bit aggressive, and it actually stalled the lathe then. So I'd advise that you use this tool to actually create the shape that you want, and then when you're happy with the shape, you can swap over to the internal bevel tool for any smoothing. So don't overcomplicate things to start with, keep it simple. While you're learning, it's very tempting to try and make something very elaborate, but it's actually best if you just practice all the techniques first. Now the common mistake people make is they tend to keep this fixed and they just move their backhand, which creates this negative curve on the actual bowl. It's important that we move our hand here as well as back here to actually create the shape. If you just leave that as a fixed point, it will always scribe a circle and you'll end up with this concave bowl, which is nice, but to get a more regular shaped bowl, move this hand as you go.